Hello, ODAC fans, and welcome to our latest ODAC chat. My name is JJ Nuckloff. I'm the Associate Commissioner with the Old Dominion Athletic Conference. And today we have something very special for you. We're joined by Erik Kratz of the New York Yankees and formerly Eastern Mennonite University Royals. And Erik, how are you doing today?
I'm awesome, JJ. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I'm going to hop right into a little fanboy session, if you will, to go there for one of my favorite plays that's involved you as a major leaguer. August 31, 2012, you're a Philadelphia Philly. John Mayberry's throwing the ball from short center field after a single. Chipper Jones and the ball arrive at the same time, and somehow you hold on to it. Just tell me about that feeling of making a play like that and how the boys rallied around you when you got back to the dugout.
It was something that you never, because you could always get run over at the plate. It's something that you never think, well, this guy's going to slide. But in that moment, I knew it was going to be a bang play, and that was Chipper's last season. So I'm like, I remember my last thought being, he's probably going to slide underneath my foot, try to take me out kind of slide, but still make it in. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of had the old quarterback option feel of like, I had my left foot slightly off the ground or like less weight on my left foot so he could slide and I just fall on top of him. And he didn't slide. And the ball and him were there simultaneously. And I think it probably would have been worse if I thought he was going to hit me. But fortunately, I was able to take the blow. And because I wasn't bracing for a hit. It was something that he hit me. And it was definitely, it was the closest I think I ever came to a concussion. We didn't really have concussion protocols. But it was something that all I could see going back to the dugout was like a small vision, like just right in the middle of my face. And everything else was just kind of blurry. And I just saw my manager and he was just looking at me like he was, normal stern face, but happy. I don't know how else to explain it. And as soon as I got to the dugout, he reached his hand out to give me a high five. And I gave him a high five. And all of a sudden it was just like, whoop. I remember hearing that noise, like whoop, and everything else cleared up. And I was like, we're good to go. The boys are juiced. And we ended up coming back and winning that game. So it was nice.
Absolutely. Congratulations on that victory and your career so far. It's taken a lot of hard work to get there. And you've got a lot of fans still in ODAC country to this day. I mean, I think about conversations I have all the time with the University of Lynchburg SID. His name is Mark Robertson. He self-proclaimed himself the greatest bullpen catcher in ODAC history. He played baseball at Emory and Henry. And that's, he and I joke back and forth about that all the time. But it's the work that goes into that, and that's kind of where I want to get into it with you here, is talk about being a Division III athlete in Eastern Mennonite and the work that it took for you to get to where you are today.
Oh, man. I mean, I appreciate you asking me that because it's something that I take a lot of pride in. I'm not like a big seeker of fame in any way. Like I really I don't enjoy as much like the famous part of being a baseball player. I enjoy the work and the process of getting to be able to be out in the field every day. And I feel like the opportunity to play baseball in the big leagues is an incredible opportunity, let alone in the minor leagues. And to come from Division III is kind of another notch on my belt, but I also don't think I would have been able to do it any other way. I see guys that are much better players than me that came from Division I programs and had scholarships and everything. And I think being from Division III, I knew there wasn't going to be, a paved path for me to get there. And it was something that kept me hungry. It kept me hungry while me and my friends were at school playing. All those guys really pushed me. And I think each one of them had a different role in my career in the fact that, the hard work, like you said, to me, the hard work is like, that's the starting point. That's not like, well, I worked hard, so now I have to be rewarded for it. No, like the hard work is like the minimal, that's the beginning point. Then you have to step in and do other things. Then you have to step in and do, what's next. And the hard work is really just the starting point, the jumping off point for me to be able to be ready to to play in every game. And there's a lot of times where I wasn't going to play for a long time, and then it was time to jump in and had to be ready to play. And I think I know that my time in Division III, while everybody wants a full ride athletic scholarship to a big time baseball school, that wasn't in my cards, and I don't think it would have been as conducive for me. I think I would have had a level of complacency that I didn't have when I was at Division III.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Think back a little bit. I mean, what do you think were some of your, reminisce a little bit, some of your best moments, your key moments there at Eastern Mennonite, that sort of thing, things that you remember the most, and maybe something that was kind of like a jumping off point for you to spur you on to where you are right now?
I don't think you have enough time on this.
Right.
On we need to reset the video recorder, and we could talk about just that. I think It's something. When I went to school there and I was recruited to go to school at EMU, I understood that while I was paying for my school myself, I still had to complete my schooling. Like, it was something that I was going to school. Yes, I still wanted to be a big league baseball player. And fortunately, I didn't have people in my life that were like, well, you can't do that. Like, you're going to a small school that's never had anybody drafted out of it, so it's not going to happen. No, I looked at guys like Robbie Moose. I looked at guys like who had played at Bridgewater. I looked at guys like, I think Maven Huffman, before I got there from EMU, had some opportunities, but he never got drafted. A guy like Billy Wagner out of Division III, I think he went to Ferrum, maybe.
Correct. Yeah.
He had gotten drafted, so I knew it was possible, and I never looked at it like, oh, well, this is really going to be difficult. I just looked at it as that's what I was going to work towards. And fortunately, I had guys on my team that pushed me, but were also really good players. If we had been a trash team, I don't think the looks, we would have gotten the same looks, because I remember my sophomore year, we went down to Florida for a tournament, and I come to find out after I got drafted that my scout had originally seen me that year. Now, I had a good tournament down in Sarasota, but he had seen some other players that were having good years, and so he had come out to see them as older players, juniors and seniors. And then I got the opportunity to be seen in that stage as a sophomore, which then propelled me on to playing in summer ball in the Valley League, which then, I continued to have success each year, a little bit better and a little bit better. And that scout actually continued to watch me each year. He wasn't hounding me. They weren't looking, to make their first pick with me, but it was something that it kind of was a jumping off point because of the people that were around me and the people that were doing well around me. So it wasn't like one specific instance. It was something that just continually grew and had opportunities.
Erik, before we get into a little bit more, I'll take a quick word from one of our sponsors.
With over 100 local offices, Virginia Farm Bureau agents are part of your community. If you want insurance from a company that knows you, get to know us.
Erik, we thank our friends at Virginia Farm Bureau Insurance. They help us out, put on tournaments like the ODAC baseball tournament that is, I'm sure you follow along, has expanded to 8 teams over the past couple of years. So it's really a nice event that we've got. But for the next part of this this session we've got here in ODAC Chat, I want to kind of get off the field a little bit, kind of go outside the lines, let you brag about your family a little bit, because I know you're a big family man. Talk about how important they've been to your success over the years, both just the work in working through the minor leagues to get to the major leagues and now enjoying some of that experience.
Yeah, I mean, in the minor leagues, it was something that I couldn't have done it without their support. I mean, first of all, my wife, Sarah, who we met in college and actually got married before my last semester, my senior year. It was awesome that we were able to do that, and she's been with me the whole time. The support, there's a whole nother episode. The support that she gave us in our 94 different moves is incredible. I never say, like, there's some wives in baseball who will say, well, we we really struggled this year throwing strikes or hitting this year. No, we didn't struggle. Like, I'm the player, she's the wife, but she and I, my wife and I always say we had a lot of moves. We made a lot of transitions. Because everything that we did together. And when guys were making choices to not be with their wives or with their kids, they were able to do other things, purchase other things, buy other things. But you bring your wife and kids, now you have to get a larger apartment or a larger house in the season. And so there was financial choices that we had to make, but there was also those choices were made because that's what was important. And we really set out to not ever be apart more than 14 days. 14 days was the max. We broke it one time since we had kids. I went over to Japan, but that was it. And so, I think that was something that is 100% credit to her, because the only thing I could do was wake up in the morning and make sure we had food in the house, and then I had to go to the field.
Right.
So it was something that I reaped a ton of the benefits, and she reaped a ton of the difficulties. Moving our family, packing up into the car. Oh, you got called up to the big leagues. That's great. Or, oh, you got called up to AAA. That's great. Now I have to go and pack up the apartment and get the kids to the season. And so she deserves so much of the credit for the success and opportunities that I've had, along with the rest of my family. I mean, there are other people from her aunt and uncle in Sarasota to my parents, to both of our siblings, the support that they've given. Randomly at a game in Milwaukee, my brother-in-law would show up, and just the support. Like, it's that community that I think, ironically, we're talking about it. It's that Division III small school support community that continues throughout our whole life. And I think it's the only way that you can accomplish anything great. But I think it's also anytime you can accomplish something after there's setbacks. And I think there's a lot of setbacks in the minor leagues for me. And that community that was developed in the small school setting was so huge. It was paramount in everything that I did in baseball.
No, absolutely. And community has been a big part of what you've done. I'm going to kind of combine a couple things here. You led into the moves that you made, the different clubs you played for, 10 major league clubs and whatnot, and afforded you opportunities in minor leagues. So a lot of different communities you're able to work with. We're recording this on Tuesday, October 27th, but it's going to post tomorrow, Wednesday, October 28th. That happens to be right in the middle of NCAA Diversity Inclusion Week, and the theme for that day is I've Got Your Back. So when we talk a little bit about some of the things you've also done with mentorship with Latin American players, specifically the stories that have come out about you and David Garcia with the New York Yankees, talk a little bit about some of those things and how they've enriched your experience working with communities, working with younger players, giving back a little bit to them.
Oh man, I learned a long time ago that me as a player, I'm not saying it's everybody,
sure,
but me as a player, if I only look at my results in the game of baseball, I am just going to beat myself up. I am going to be too hard on myself, be too difficult, and needlessly beating myself up. And so years ago, and maybe this is part of being a backup catcher, I think it might be different for a guy that plays every day in another position, but I found so much more satisfaction in being able to help other guys. Doesn't mean that it didn't take care of my work. It didn't mean, well, you know what, I'm not going to go get ready so that I can go help this guy. No, I had to make sure that I put enough time allotted for myself to be ready, but then also to be available for other guys. And it wasn't something that it was like daily. I was going over to a young Latin player and showing him, well, hey, you need to do this, or you need to, that can be suffocating.
Sure.
But I wanted to be available, and I wanted to be there every day. It wasn't just for the Latin players. It wasn't just for the Black players. It wasn't just for the Japanese players, the Korean players. But I think in some senses, there was times when I gravitated toward those guys, because if you're being intentional and you see people who are not necessarily in the fray or comfortable. How do you make them feel comfortable? And I think ultimately it was probably me being selfish because I wanted to win, and I love winning in everything. I think we just played cornhole over the weekend, and I really enjoyed beating the people that I beat in cornhole.
There you go.
It's so selfishly I wanted to win, but I also saw the benefit and reap the benefit of what that connection with somebody on the team that may not necessarily be, not that they're not accepted, it's difficult. And I realized how difficult it was when I went and played winter ball, and I knew Spanish, so it made me be able to make that transition easier. But I saw a lot of my American teammates over in the Dominican, they kind of went to the field. They didn't really talk to too many people. They got high fives when they did well, but it just seemed, from an outsider's viewpoint, it seemed like they were lonely, or they were, it's kind of like, oh, I can't wait for this to be done. And I would hate for that to be one of my teammates in the States here for a 6 month, 8 month season where they're like,
Right.
I can't wait for this to be done. I regret, because they're missing their family. I know how much I miss my family when I'm away from them. And like I just said, I'm not away from them that much. So it's something that's really, it grew over the years. And the older you get, like they said in Dazed and Confused, I get older and they stay the same age. This was
Right.
referring to the Latino players. They're always the same age. And so the older you get, the more that they look to you and they're like, okay, well, he's done this.
Yep.
Maybe I could learn something. And so, and so hopefully I made that connection with other guys other than just Davey, but it's something he and I's connection was a meaningful connection for sure.
Absolutely. You talked a couple times in there, not just about, being able to give back and mentor, but also the learning process going through as you're a younger player, as you're a younger professional, whatever your choice is, that sort of thing. Talk about the importance of that process when you're first going through the experience, the learning piece, and kind of explain that to our collegiate audience about how that's just as important as eventually being able to give back.
Oh man. And the best part of learning is the worst part also.
Right.
Is you make mistakes. You make mistakes, you say things. Maybe your priorities are misaligned. It's something that everybody makes those mistakes. And I think sometimes in sports, especially, and in relationships with people, because that's ultimately what we're talking about here, is that relationship with people. You make mistakes, and that's not the part that really hurts people to the bone. Yes, it hurts on the surface, but if you admit your mistake and you admit that to them, that takes a lot more. That takes a lot more of the pressure off your chest. It takes a lot more of the hurt off of their chest, and you can grow from it. And so I think some of the biggest growing moments for me were preceded by mistakes that I made. Mistakes, selfish mistakes of listening to the wrong person or following the wrong person down a path where it's like, oh man, like, why did I do that? Like, you got to be smarter than that. But again, I can't take it back because it got me to the point where I am now. And I think when you stop making those mistakes or stop thinking you're making the mistakes, that's when you're really making the mistakes. And I think it's huge in college because college, you went from college athletics, especially, you go from working this much to improving this much in high school. And then in college, you have to work this much to improve this much in your athletic endeavors because of how much your competition improves, how much, everybody's already, you've grown and you've learned a lot of things, but that little bit can be a constant little bit. And when you stop trying to grow and you stop trying to get better, then you stop getting better. Like, it's not just going to all of a sudden, it's not like when you're 12 and you wake up and you're like, whoa, I got a lot faster today. It just doesn't happen. And in collegiate athletics, and it definitely doesn't happen, at the Division I level, and it doesn't happen at the Division III level. The difference is Division III, you really have to take ownership for it, because there's not the same things afforded you at the like there is at the programs of Division I level.
That makes sense, absolutely. As we go ahead and look at kind of to wrap things up here a little bit, want to get back onto the field real fast, have a little bit of fun with. We'll give you 30, 45 seconds. World Series Game 6 coming up on tonight, this Tuesday night, and possibly Game 7 on the night that people could be watching this. So let's say it gets past that, or talk about this tonight. What do you see for the remaining game tonight, and maybe a second game coming to Game 7, the greatest words in sports, possibly on Wednesday?
We've had a lot of in this playoffs. We've had a lot of good Game 7s, Game 5s, whatever they are. It's the take all games. It's as a fan you enjoy it, but as a player, it is something that really, really it takes you to the next level. It does, and it puts you in a situation where you can't explain it, but it also increases your ability to understand situations when it's not winner take all, and you're like, hey, this could be something I could apply. But specifically for the game, you know what? I really like a lot of the guys on the Rays, so I hate to say it, but I just see the Dodgers being the better team, but that doesn't mean that the Rays can't win. If the Dodgers continue to have the at-bats that they've been having, they'll take it. And I'm not saying they'll take it in Game 6, but they'll take it because their at-bats are relentless, and they'll just slowly wear these pitchers down. The off day here is huge for the Rays. They're gonna come out with fresh arms both nights. They're going to be able to throw both their pitchers. Both their entire bullpen will be able to throw both nights, and they're getting their starting pitching back too. So it's something that's if the Dodgers go out of their approach and they don't stay in their approach, I think it'll be a Rays win in Game 6. If they stay in their approach, I couldn't be happier for Clayton to get his first World Series ring. I think it's something that would be a great culmination for his career. But the guys on the Rays too, from the coaches and the players, man, I love those guys. Playing with them for 2.5, 3 weeks last year, it was a really meaningful group of guys that are really intentional about what they do.
Well, I think it's been a great series. Me personally, I would like to go back to a couple of years ago when the Indians were in the World Series with the Cubs, and that's where my heart was. Rajai Davis hits that homer. I thought things were going to be good, and then things turned around. But it is what it is. I know people and fans are going to have their heartstrings pulled both directions here the next night, maybe 2 nights with the World Series. But Erik, I want to thank you very much. This was a great chat, and good luck with the rest of it, and thank you for joining us today.
No doubt, JJ. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely.